The New England Patriots take on the Los Angeles Chargers this week, and what we can expect will be a great matchup. Mike Debate, the host of our Locked On Patriots podcast, joins us as always to break down this one. Mike, Patriots playing against a good Chargers team. What are you expecting come Sunday at 4 o'clock?
Well, this is going to be a very, very tough game for the New England Patriots. There's no sugarcoating it or question about it, Sam. Look, everyone that's remembering this matchup last year, the New England Patriots going into SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, really blowing out the Chargers in that game. This team is much improved. They're much better on the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, and they're much better in special teams, which is where the Chargers really struggled last year. That being said, this is a very winnable game for the New England Patriots, and they have to do two things in order to do it. First of all, on the offensive side of the ball, you need to have a heavy dose of Damian Harris and the running game. As well as Mac Jones is playing right now, the Patriots are going to be successful in this game on Sunday if they can run the ball effectively. Right now, the Chargers' run defense, a little bit porous. They're averaging on, on average, they're allowing about 160 yards on the ground. That's something that the Patriots can really exploit if they run Damian Harris effectively and use Brandon Bolden or either Ramondre Stevenson or J.J. Taylor out of the backfield on third down options. So they can take it to this Chargers defense if they're able to keep them on their heels and run the football effectively. On the offensive side of the ball for the Chargers, what the Patriots need to do there is they need to flood the defensive backfield with defensive backs, especially considering that one of the Chargers' top options at the running game, Austin Eckler, is nursing a hip injury. We're not sure of his status of this game right now. So ultimately, what the Patriots are going to need to do is try to take away the passing lanes from Justin Herbert and try to force this team into beating you on the ground, especially if Eckler's not in there. If Herbert can start picking his spots, this could be a tough game for New England, but if they can do those two things effectively, they have a chance to pull this one out.
And Mike, speaking of Justin Herbert, the young quarterback is having a very impressive start to this season. The Patriots secondary having some issues in the early goings these last couple of games. What do you need to see from these defensive backs and really the entire defense as a whole to keep Justin Herbert in check?
That's going to be difficult. That's really the toughest task. And if the Patriots are going to be effective on Sunday, Sam, they have to try to contain that passing attack, which is not going to be easy. Justin Herbert is a phenomenal quarterback. In only his second season, he's already at that top echelon of quarterbacks throughout the league. So try to shut down his weapons. That's going to be easier said than done. He's got a couple of great ones at the receiver position in Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, who is still one of the best route runners I've ever covered. Covered him back in his days when I was covering the Chargers. Keenan was always a guy that kept me on the edge of my seat. He's a great route runner and someone that can go up and make physical contested catches. So shutting those guys down is going to be a difficult task. I look for J.C. Jackson probably to shadow Keenan a little bit as their number one option, but he may switch off and play a little bit of Mike Williams, but this is going to be a very difficult task for the secondary. When you look at what they bring from the tight end position, obviously Hunter Henry is now here in New England, and that is a great thing for the New England Patriots, but they still have a pretty effective and very capable tight end in Los Angeles and Jared Cook, so he can be a weapon there. And if Austin Eckler is in fact active for this game, and we don't know if he's going to be with a hip injury, he's very effective at receiving out of the backfield. So again, the Patriots are smart to flood the field with defensive backs, maybe going that big nickel type, 5, maybe even 6 defensive backs at a time. Try to take away Herbert's passing lanes and dare this team to try to beat you on the ground. But again, that's easier said than done.
And Mike, you've been calling for Mac Jones for weeks to start testing the limits of his deep throws and testing the ball downfield. We saw that a little bit last week against the New York Jets. Now, do you think that was because, the Patriots were playing a weaker team, or do you think this is just, a sign of what's to come this week against the Chargers?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. I think it's more of a sign of things to come rather than just being a weaker team. I always love the argument, oh, it's just the Jets, and don't get too excited about what the Patriots did last week. When you put 50 points up against a NFL football team, and whether that team is in last place or first place, these are NFL caliber players. They are not designed to give up 50 points. No defense in the NFL should be giving that up. If they're giving that up, that's a sign and a confidence booster for the offense. So I was very impressed with how the play calling worked to Mac's strengths last week. Mac really answered the call whenever he had to dial it up, whether it be running the 2-minute drill, whether it be getting a fourth down conversion. We saw him throw a quarterback sneak in there, and we also saw him test the ball downfield with a beautiful pass, maybe his best of the 6 games that he's played thus far, into 7 games, into the hands of Kendrick Bourne, which nearly went for a touchdown. One of something that Patriots fans can really get excited about. So I'd look for that to continue this week, even though the defense they're going to be facing in Los Angeles is much better than the one they faced last week against New York. They're still going to try to test it, as they should. And Mac Jones is capable of being able to complete them.
And Mike, before the season started, if I would have told you that the Patriots and Chiefs would have the same record through 7 weeks, we probably both would be, okay, 5-2 or whatnot, but both teams sitting at 3-4. I know the playoffs are a long way out, but how big would a win here in Los Angeles for the Patriots be to get back to 500?
It would be huge, especially the way this team started. A few tough luck losses, really bad loss to the New Orleans Saints earlier this season. A lot of people started to jump off that Patriots bandwagon and say, well, maybe we overhyped this team, or maybe the off-season free agent acquisitions were not enough to take this team over the edge. Maybe we have to have more temperance and more patience when it comes to the rookie quarterback and what this team can do. But at the same time, Sam, I always say virtue lies in the middle. I think it's probably a little bit of both. I think maybe the team was oversold a little bit, but I also think that this team is more than capable of ripping off a playoff run. And we saw the prowess that they could show last week against the Jets. And for those that want to say it's just the Jets, take a look at the performances that they put forth against the Cowboys and the Buccaneers. Even though those are 2 games in which they lost, they were very winnable games for the New England Patriots. So they can pretty much hang with anybody. If they can play their game and be able to set themselves on offense and on defense, this team can hang with anybody. And based on that, anything's possible.
And Mike, you've covered the Patriots for years. You've covered the Chargers. Who are some guys, on both sides of the ball that you are expecting to be an X factor coming up on Sunday?
Well, for the Patriots, I would look for J.C. Jackson to be an X factor on defense. For all of the issues that the Patriots are having in the secondary right now, J.C. continues to be a solid number 1 option for this team. He's your best cover corner. He's going to be the guy that's going to have to shut down either Keenan Allen or Mike Williams in order for this game to be successful. Because as much as I like to say, take away the passing lanes, don't give them the chance to do it, Justin Herbert can find a way to get his receivers the ball, even when it doesn't look likely that he's going to be able to do so. So JC is going to have a big game, and I think he's up for it. Said earlier this week, he's not approaching this game any differently. I think he's saying the right things, but he's looking at that receiving core and saying that it's going to be a handful with both of those guys. So I look for JC to be the defensive X factor. On offense, Damian Harris is going to be the guy that is going to really, I think, dictate what this team is able to do offensively on Sunday. If he can start getting first downs on first and second, these long sustained drives that the New England Patriots need to be able to keep Justin Herbert off the field, I think he's got a shot at being able to do it. And again, against a run defense that has had its share of struggles in 2021. So those are my 2 guys for the Patriots. On the Chargers, I loved covering Keenan Allen every second that I covered the Chargers. He's truly one of the best route runners I've ever seen when it comes to wide receivers. I'm looking forward to watching him, seeing what he can do. Obviously, all eyes are going to be on Justin Herbert. He really has emerged as one of the top options, top quarterbacks in the league. Everyone's going to be looking to see what he can do. On the defensive side of the ball, I always love to see what Derwin James can bring to the table as a safety. He's going to be charged with trying to maybe keep Hunter Henry out of the game. Hunter going against his former team is going to want to perform big time against the Chargers. So I look for those guys to be the factors in this game. Those are the 4 that I'm looking for on each side of the ball, on each side of the sideline.
From the West Coast to the East Coast, Mike Debate always breaks down the latest insight around this New England Patriots team, and you can hear more of his analysis and thoughts on the Locked On Patriots podcast. You can listen and download anywhere you get your podcast. Mike, we're halfway through. It's week 8.
Week 8, unbelievable to think about, but there's still a lot of football left, folks, so don't get down about it. Still plenty of Patriots football left in the season.